What do you make of the James Harden era? What are your feelings about him in his prime with the Rockets, how he left, and what he's doing in Brooklyn? I mean, I believe you know how these things go in terms of the star player leaving for a different team. It could be kind of a messy divorce, or it could be fond memories. What do you overall make of what happened with James Harden?
First of all, is that a New Mexico State in the background? Is that what that is?
Oh, New Mexico, Lobos.
New Mexico. Sorry. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, we're from Albuquerque.
There you go. Do you remember a guy named Philip McDonald?
Yes.
Oh, yeah. Phil McDonald, for sure.
For sure.
Yeah, we beat Philip McDonald in high school in the first round of the playoffs. We upset them. I remember Philip McDonald. Anyways, to answer your question, I think it's both sides of the coin. I understand why he did what he did. It also was messy, look, he was in a position where he had to carry a load that pretty much no one in the NBA can carry other than LeBron James. And I spent a lot of time defending him and arguing on his behalf. And I stick to it by this day. I stick to it to this day. Nobody, the Rockets were going to win in 18. They were going to win it all. I firmly believe that. And James Harden was carrying a load that no one other than LeBron carries. And he played with two superstars in 8 years. Sorry, two all-stars in 8 years. Dwight Howard, I believe, in his first year in Houston, and then Russell Westbrook in his only year in Houston. You can argue Chris Paul was deserving of an all-star spot. That's fine, but he missed 24 games each season, so that kind of definitely factors in. Made 2 conference finals. Obviously had a title in the bag. Now, the flip side of that is that knowing what we know and knowing some of the things that I know, Harden, he was a my way or the highway kind of guy to his own detriment, unfortunately, and I think that kind of played into, you have to look like, was Dwight Howard the type of talent to take Houston all the way at that point in his career? Probably not, but Harden ran him out of town. I don't have any issue with that necessarily because Dwight Howard didn't really understand his role. He wanted to be like a back to the basket, give me the ball kind of guy, but that's example one. The Chris Paul relationship that Harden ruined, I'll never forgive him for, unfortunately. Obviously Chris Paul has a reputation for maybe being difficult to play with, whatever. But at the end of the day, basketball-wise, those guys clicked. People think they didn't because they just kind of alternated ISOs, but they were ridiculous, and they were ridiculously good. And what Harden didn't do, to his detriment in that second year, is Harden wasn't willing to change his ISO game. He wanted to keep playing it. And the fact that Chris Paul couldn't really keep up at the same level that he did in his first year in Houston really pissed Harden off. And the Rockets could have been a lot better if Harden was willing to kind of budge on some of that and play some of Chris Paul's style and do some things like moving off the ball, running sets, all that kind of stuff, like you see Devin Booker do. And I don't know, Matt, I don't know if you remember this game since you said you're a Rockets fan, but in that second season, 2018, 2019, there was a game, I think it was in February or March, and I think it was in Golden State, but it was against Golden State for sure. James Harden was out, and Chris Paul had 24 points and 17 assists, and the Rockets beat them pretty handily. And that was the foreshadowing. That was the blueprint, not the foreshadowing. That was the blueprint for playing a different style and keeping a team on their toes, right? Because Chris Paul had a really poor playoff series his second season, because they had him going ISO, So Harden deserves a lot of flack and blame for not adjusting and then for ultimately running him out, which is what he did. Harden said, trade him or trade me. And I know that for sure. So I'll never forgive him for that. And that, he made his own bed and he's got to lay in it with respect to that. And then the Russ trade, he wanted Russ to the extent that he forced the franchise. He didn't force them, but he basically held them hostage. And what are you going to do if you're a franchise? Trade Harden or Chris Paul. In hindsight, trade Harden at his highest value, but at the time they panicked and they did what they did, and they traded Chris Paul and 2 draft picks and draft swaps or whatever it was, right? And they put themselves in a deep, deep hole in terms of asset collection, and that is almost entirely, definitely majority on James Harden and him making that request and demand. And then after a year, Harden and Russ, and again, I know this, Harden and Russ just didn't really click. I feel like, they kind of realized things weren't the same as they used to be. They realized that they're kind of in different places in their career, and they had formed into different players. And that's why Russ was just like, cool, send me somewhere else so I can play my game. And they mutually parted ways. They were both okay with it. And then, of course, everything else that we know, the strip club stuff, whatever he said in the press conference, situation is crazy, blah, 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 blah. And also, he deserves a ton of blame for not even giving the trio of himself, Russell Westbrook, and Christian Wood a chance, because they could have been pretty freaking good. And then given how all the injuries played out, Phoenix emerged out of the West, right? I mean, I have a lot of faith in Harden, Russell Westbrook, and Christian Wood beating that Phoenix team, especially with those role players, especially if you give them, another year of, or not even a year, but if, season moves, right? Who knows what kind of moves they could have made on the fringes to improve that team. So, to answer your question, it was messy, man. Like, I don't blame him, because now he's getting all the recognition that he deserved in Houston, right? You see everyone saying, oh my God, James Harden has changed his game. He's become a passer. Okay, you weren't watching, clearly. And, but you see how the narrative changes, and we know for sure that stuff affects them. I actually found Harden's mom's burner account and outed it in the offseason. And so, like, there's your direct answer. Moan Bear, MONBEAR 5, Moan Bear 5. She blocked me. But so, but there's your direct answer, right? Like, they see what's being said, they hear the noise. And I don't think it's any coincidence that now Harden is like all over social media, right? Ever since going to Brooklyn, he was radio silent on social media in Houston for a while. Now he's just posting all the time, doing his thing. Seems happier, playing with Kevin Durant, Kyrie Irving. Brooklyn is doing every single thing possible to get every single role player possible. They re-signed Blake Griffin, Paul Millsap, whatever, right? Patty Mills. So from that angle, I'm not mad at him. The situation that was created and around him, and the perception that was created around him, to some degree, was really out of his hands, and the media just did what the media did, and now the media is doing what the media does, and so. But as a fan, knowing all the minutia of it, it's kind of just like, damn, it's unfortunate, because it should have happened. And if 2018 Chris Paul injury doesn't happen, legacies are different. Harden probably re-ups that contract again, stays for longer. D'Antoni is certified. Chris Paul doesn't get traded, all that stuff. So it sucks, but it is what it is.